Okay, welcome to today's showcase. So we are currently in the code, and I'm going to ask that you don't worry about that because it's not a big deal. The reason for that is because the first thing I want to show off is the title screen. It goes very fast, and I can't really stop it, so I'm kind of stalling for time. But I also wanted to talk about why we're doing it on Monday, and it's not because I'm purposefully trying to be late or anything like that, or I'm trying to be late in general. It's actually just because that's the new format, if you guys weren't aware, that we're going to be trying out. So I've asked a ton of people what they thought, and they said that they thought that 2 a week would be much more approachable, I guess. And I totally understand that. I think it was 4 a week before, and that's, or every other day, I suppose, and that's just kind of way too much for people to keep up on, especially when they're around 20 minutes in length. And I understand that people have said that they like listening to my voice, but I understand that most people don't, or don't necessarily watch them just for my voice, of course. So well, I appreciate that, understand that, other people have their needs and everything, and my hope is with doing this Monday and Thursday that we'll be able to fit in a lot more content, because I'll have a lot more time in between to actually do that, and I'll spend a lot less time making the video itself and talking in the video, and more time actually coding stuff to put in the video. So ideally, this should put a ton more content into the showcases, and it should allow us a lot more time to work on it in between as well. So it'll just give me more free time, and it'll give you guys free time, and hopefully make it more engaging too, because you don't get them every other day. So those are my hopes, whatever. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the game, and it's going to happen pretty fast because it is the title screen, so watch closely. First thing you'll notice is that it does, in fact, crumble now, so it's no longer just this kind of spray of gems that doesn't really make any sense. I've done a lot of tweaking here to make it look okay. You can see here it shakes initially, and you can see the cracks forming, and underneath there's the second version of the title, and when it breaks it goes white, and then of course the stars start expanding out. And I want you guys to pay a lot of attention here, because there are a few things that I really am proud of. So first of all, the crumbling is great. Hal is fantastic. He did a great job with that, so I'm very happy with the title actually crumbling. The username and password here did show up, I suppose, before the crumbling. Now they only show up after it's exploded, which I think makes it look a lot better too. So it's not just the vortex appearing. So I think that looks very good. Obviously, you'll notice a ton of differences with the stars here, I think, if you've been watching anyway, or at least if you remember the old title and everything. So previously, it would just go out from the center here. So they would just go out to the edges, and then when they reached the edge up here, I guess you can't see my arrow outside this, or the pointer outside the screen, but when they reached the edge, they would just teleport back to the center. And that wasn't very complicated, I guess, but it worked. So I've put a lot of effort into making this look, in my opinion, a lot better. So what these do now is they have a lot more complicated logic applied to them. However, I've also optimized them a lot. So they're a lot more optimized than they were previously. However, they also have, I think, a much cooler kind of behavior. And if you're curious, I'm just going to go over it real quick. Basically, they shoot out, and then they have a sine function applied to them, so they try to spiral. And depending on their speed, they'll either hit the edge and then teleport back to the center, or they will successfully spiral, and you'll see these kind of orbiting around or falling back into the center, where they'll essentially build up speed again and then shoot out the other side. So they converge on each other, and so on and so forth. There are a couple kind of blooper versions that I'm going to post somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where just yet, but it is going to be somewhere, and probably in the showcase Discord itself. Regardless, I'm not entirely sure about that, so take it with a grain of salt. However, they are pretty hilarious, so I figured I might as well post them somewhere. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's the new title screen for the most part. That's the title sequence. If you're worried about having to sit through that every time you log in, you won't have to. You'll be able to click any button and it'll just skip it, or you can probably have a config option. I haven't set a config option yet, but if you want to just skip it, you can literally just set the config and it will completely skip it every time you log in, which is not a big deal, obviously. I would get tired of that myself if I had to go sit through it every single time I logged in. So, in order to get past this title, since we're on the client, I'm going to quickly skip past it. It's going to pause for a second and hopefully quickly reload the page. There we go. So some of the other stuff I've been working on is actually pretty complex, and one of the first things I want to show off is a zoom feature. And this I can't take credit for, or at least not full credit for. Conlit, I don't know if you guys know him. You probably don't. He hasn't played Eternia or Spires or any of those games. He's just kind of like a Beyond personality in general, like outside of Eternia. So you probably don't know who he is, but a really smart guy. He figured out how to make a very clean zoom system via JavaScript easing, so I was really impressed by that, and I wanted to implement it myself, so I asked him for tips and everything, and here we are. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that. It really looks cool, and in case you're wondering before I do this, I'm just using my mouse wheel for it. So you can zoom in, as such. You can continue to zoom in up to 5 times, so 500% the initial, and you will notice that this is off center. I recognize that fully. I need to realign the player model or whatever with the center of the screen. Don't worry about that. Don't freak out. I totally understand. It's very annoying. So that will get fixed ASAP. Anyway, you zoom out the same way by just dragging your mouse wheel back, and obviously you're here. So it is possible to go further out than this, and that's actually something I was really excited for because I want to use that in scouting. So I am going to make it possible to actually zoom out further than you are normally. But that'll be locked behind masteries, like I said, scouting, tracking, that kind of thing. So again, you just zoom in once, and it's actually, like, it might look like I'm zooming in to a specific point, but I'm zooming in between zoom levels, you could say. So I'm zooming in between 100%, 200%, 300%, 400%, and then finally 500%. So it's actually like tiered, if that makes sense. So there's no risk you're getting stuck at any of these, and even if you do, I will in the future have it set so that your middle mouse button clicking will just reset your zoom to the default amount, which I think makes sense. So that's very simple, I think, in function, very complicated in the background, but either way, very happy about that, very happy that Conlit showed me, very happy in general for being able to have the opportunity to utilize that. So very thankful for everything. Just wanted to make mention of that and show it off because I think you guys will be pretty happy with that, if not impressed. So after that we have Magmatic Eruption, which is a new magma spell. This is going to take a little bit longer to show off. There are a couple different optimizations and tweaks that I've made to damage numbers that I might be able to show off in conjunction with this, but for now we're just going to go up here. So obviously, as I've said a couple times in the past few showcases, I have prerequisites actually turned off, so even though it shows these lines and everything, and those will be of course the prereq lines in the future, they don't actually mean anything. So I can still buy core plating even though I don't have Cauterize or any of these other spells, which is intended. I really don't feel like having to spend 70 spell points to get to one spell that I need to test for another spell or something like that, for instance. So I need to buy core plating for this, or I guess I don't need to, but I should. That's actually a problem. I didn't realize that I could zoom in here. That's very easily fixed, but I didn't actually test that before. Anyway, you guys can read this if you want. I'll let you pause. It's a little bit of a complicated spell in idea or in concept, but in functionality it's actually not that crazy. To put this into perspective for you guys, or rather to put it in layman's terms, just so you guys don't have to read or decipher this, especially because I haven't finished the description yet, essentially it plays off of core plating. So when you have 3 core plates, this spell will be better. If you have no core plates, it will be a very basic spell that doesn't have a ton of function. So first of all, it spawns a 3x3 AoE around you if you don't have core plates. If you do have core plates, for every core plate that you do have still, so if you have lost any core plates due to taking damage and losing them from the loss of damage absorption and otherwise, or other means, basically the number of plates you have increases the size of the AoE up to a maximum of, I believe, 4 times the original, or rather 3 times the original. In addition to that, casting will give you 2% DR per plate you use. So it's a little bit of a boost. It's like 6% DR if you have all your plates. So it's just a little bit of a compensation for spending all of your plates. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. So first I'm just going to show off the initial cast. I guess I can do this over here. So you cast that, it appears, and then there's like these little smoke clouds or whatever you want to call them. And if I go here, I won't be able to see DR because it only lasts for 2.5 seconds. It's a very, very short period of DR. I really, as I've said in numerous places and numerous times, don't want to promote the idea that there should always be a ton of DR everywhere. It's a very cancerous kind of design because you end up getting stuck with just hundreds of, DR broken scenarios. So it is going to be pretty short, probably not just 2.5 seconds and probably not just 6%, but I am going to keep those kind of on a tight leash, if that makes sense. So now that it's off cooldown, I can show again. This time I'm going to walk up to this random doll, hit this, and you can see he takes damage. That F is kind of, I should probably change, the font color. I'll change the font color in the future just because it's not obviously very conducive with the tiles themselves. It's kind of a minor thing, but anyway. The F is a replacement for, I believe, dodging? I can't remember exactly, but it is a replacement for one of them, so don't freak about that. Anyway, if I use core plating, however, you will see that when I use Magmatic Eruption, it consumes them all, and then it creates this star-shaped pattern instead. So as you can probably tell, depending on how many video games you play and otherwise, the amount of actual AoE tiles that go down is optimal around 2 core plates. So you can really get value out of that by skipping the third. I believe actually the second too. So, or no, it is just the second. So if you have 2 core plates, this spell is at the best because you really, like I said, don't care as soon as core plating is off cooldown. I'll show it again. You really don't care about these up here. And it's built intentionally that way. Like the external ones, like over here, aren't that bad, but these probably aren't going to hit people. And of course it adds theme and everything, but you don't sincerely need that. So there is a point where it's more valuable to just waste a core plate first or take some damage first before using this, because you don't care about the external little hang-on AoEs and everything. So in case you guys were wondering about the shape, that's my intention with it. I want you to still be able to use core plates to some extent before you use Magmatic Eruption. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's pretty conducive and everything. As per usual, this is around when it's going to get a little more technical. So if you're not really into that stuff, you can, feel free to check out now. I will say that this is probably one of the last times that we're going to have a really in-depth technical talk in the main showcase. So if you enjoy that stuff, rejoice. Or rather, if you don't enjoy that stuff, rejoice. If you do enjoy that stuff, if you're not, I'm going to have a separate video explaining a lot of the technical stuff and hopefully going into some of the code as well, if you guys are curious about that kind of stuff. So that'll be sometime this week, maybe. It depends when I get a chance, but regardless, just letting you guys know about the format and the new format. It's probably not going to allow for very much time for that kind of technical stuff. It's mostly going to be new content. Today is a little different just because it's the first day of the new format, so I didn't actually get not that much extra time to code much stuff. I guess I did code quite a bit anyway, but regardless, I didn't get that much time to fill the entire showcase, so I'm going to fill the rest of it with a technical talk instead, like as per usual. It's basically a normal showcase, just with a little bit more content, so that's the idea anyway. And then on Thursday, hopefully we'll have a jam-packed showcase, so I don't have to worry about technical talk, probably about 15 minutes or so. Anyway, so for the last 3 minutes or so, I'm just going to go off about the technical stuff, like optimization and damage numbers. The first thing I want to mention is, it is getting sincerely laggy. Very strange. I think that was related to parallax, which I still direly need to turn off. I don't know if you guys can see it down here, but it is very, very, very minor. But regardless, don't need to turn it off just because it gets very laggy. Anyway, if I go ahead over here and hit him, you'll see when it starts, I guess it's too slow actually. This might be kind of difficult to show off then. Anyway, it's not a big deal. It's damage numbers previously. I'm sure you guys have seen it in one showcase or another if you've watched any of them. Basically, when they stack, so if you hit them twice with the same spell, they enlarge and kind of bulge, if that makes sense, and then they reduce back to their normal size. And previously that was huge, like it would bulge to a huge size and then instantly shrink to basically nothing. It looked a little comical. It didn't clarify the amount of damage you were taking. It wasn't very useful. It looked interesting and it definitely looked better than nothing, but it still didn't look great, so I changed that up. And obviously, even if I can't show it right now, I might be able to show it if I overlap maybe. Okay, the tick rate is just barely too slow. This is an error, by the way. This thing is below the AoE tile. Very easy to fix, of course, but anyway, it is just a little bit too slow to show off the damage numbers. But anyway, as I was saying, previously they would bulge to a ridiculous size and then shrink down to basically nothing. So now I've clamped them so that they can't reduce below, I think, 12 font size, and they can't go above, I think, 40. So it hits that maximum, stays there for a second, and then retreats back to 10, and then sits there for a second. So it explodes instantly, but it doesn't get too big, and then it explodes down again, but it doesn't get too small that you can't read it. So at all points you can still read it, and instead of being kind of such a sudden growth and sudden decrease that you're more startled than you are actually reading the numbers, it now acts properly, so you can tell and everything. Anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is the title optimization, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into I have time, right? I have just barely enough time to show this off, or to talk about it at least. The title sequence previously used relayering, and relayering is this big thing that causes a lot of lag. I talked about it previously with a couple different things like parallax and stuff, but basically previously it was causing a ton of lag with the stars in this menu, even when they were just going in that basic line pattern and everything. Uh, this would cause much more lag if they didn't have relayering disabled. So I disabled relayering and did some other optimizations so that they don't run their functions more than they need to, and now you can see it's actually sitting at basically capped FPS for the most part. Sometimes it has these spikes, and the reason that that's happening is because it's not just this title screen. In reality, I'm actually just in game right now, and this is overlaid on top of my screen, so it's causing lag. It's not really the title screen causing lag, if that makes sense. Another thing is that, before I ramble too much, we do gotta go soon. Another thing is that this has a little bit of parallax right now. I still need to fix it because you can see like right there, I don't know if you guys saw, but they don't layer properly exactly, and that's not because I disabled relayering. Relayering is only when you're changing layers in the actual in runtime, which I'm not, or you don't need to for parallax, I should say. Basically, there are two things here that judge speed, and that's how fast they move, as in how fast their position is updated, and then how much their position is updated by. And right now it's only set to how much their or how often their position updates, so I need to change it so that it's both factors included for the layers, which shouldn't be too hard. I think that it should be pretty easy, in fact. Anyway, we do need to go, so unfortunately the showcase is over, or at least the future showcase and everything else is over. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really did have a lot of fun making this title screen, and I can't wait to show off the bloopers because they are very funny. They made me laugh quite a bit. Cosmic gumballs is all I can say. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. As I said, hopefully Thursday showcase is equally as pleasing for both me and you guys. I hope that this format works out. I think that next showcase and the showcases in the future are probably going to aim for more like 13 to 14 minutes, just so that I can cut down on rambling even more, so I can just have the content for you guys, and then hopefully I can have maybe like a 10-minute discussion with you guys about technical stuff sometime during the week. I'm not sure. Anyway, as I said, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys look forward to the next one. Hope you guys enjoy the new format and everything. If you don't, let me know. If you do, let me know. And again, thank you to Conlet, who let me use his Zoom feature. It was a very nice solution, so I appreciate that quite a bit. Have a good day, guys.